The sky was thick with dust, the sound of collapsing walls echoing through the air as chaos unfolded in the small city. In the midst of the disaster, a young woman named Layla clutched her newborn son tightly. The earthquake had struck without warning, reducing streets to rubble and splitting families apart. With the ground still trembling beneath her feet, she stumbled into what remained of a building, desperate to find shelter. But then, a terrible choice presented itself, one she would regret for the rest of her life. In the split second, faced with falling debris and the threat of death, she placed her baby in the safest corner she could find, hoping rescuers would reach him before the walls came down, and then she ran. This is not a story about cruelty, it's a story about survival. But what happened years later would make the world question everything she had done that day. Years passed. Layla never saw her child again. She had searched for months, putting up posters, visiting shelters, asking every aid worker she could find, but there was no trace of him. Eventually, she accepted the bitter truth that her son might not have survived. The guilt stayed with her like a shadow she could never shake. She moved to a distant city, started a small life, and tried to bury the memory. But fate has a way of circling back when you least expect it. 12 years later, Layla fell seriously ill. Her body was weak, her finances gone, and with no family left to turn to, she found herself sitting in a crowded public hospital, waiting for a doctor who never seemed to come. Her illness required surgery, something she could not afford. As she sat there, coughing into her worn shawl, a young man in a crisp white coat walked by. He stopped, looked at her with strange intensity, and asked softly, "Layla?" She was confused. No one here knew her name. The young man's eyes were sharp but kind, and before she could answer, he sat beside her. I think you're my mother." The room seemed to vanish around her. Her heart pounded, and her mind raced back to that day in the rubble. She could barely speak. "My mother died that day," he continued, his voice trembling. "But they found me. A rescue worker pulled me from the wreckage, and I was adopted by a family overseas. I became a doctor and came back here for volunteer work. I never thought I'd see you again." Layla's eyes filled with tears, her guilt threatening to crush her. "I never meant to leave you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought you'd be safe there. I thought I'd come back in time." The young man, her son, took a deep breath. For years, he had dreamed of this moment, not knowing whether he would feel anger or compassion. But looking at her now, frail and broken, all he felt was a deep, aching love. "You gave me a chance to live," he said, "and now I want to give the same." Without hesitation, he arranged for her surgery, paying every expense. In the weeks that followed, Layla's health improved, and so did their bond. They spent long afternoons talking about his childhood, about her struggles, about the life that might have been. Slowly, the years of separation began to heal. What started as a tragedy ended as a reminder that life is unpredictable, and forgiveness can be the most powerful gift of all. Layla had once left her son in the rubble to save his life, and now, years later, that very son was the one pulling her from the rubble of her own hardship. Sometimes, the circle really does close. In the months that followed her recovery, Layla found herself adjusting to a new kind of life, one she had never imagined was possible. For years, she had lived alone in a cramped apartment, her only company the sound of the wind outside and the memories she tried to silence. But now, there were visits to her son's home, dinners where laughter filled the air, and quiet evenings where they simply sat together, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Each moment was like a fragile thread, weaving together the broken fabric of their past. Her son, whose name was Amir, began sharing pieces of his life she had never known. He spoke of his adoptive parents, kind, patient people who had given him love and stability. He showed her photographs from his childhood, the first day of school, the time he learned to ride a bike, his graduation from medical school. Layla listened intently, smiling through her tears. She mourned the years she had missed, yet felt immense gratitude that those years had been filled with care, even if it wasn't from her. But it wasn't just Layla who was healing. Amir, too, was finding a sense of peace he hadn't realized he needed. For years, a small part of him had wondered why his birth mother hadn't been there, why she hadn't searched harder. Now, hearing her speak about the quake, the chaos, the impossible choice she had faced, he understood. Survival wasn't about abandoning. It was about making the only decision you could in a moment where every second counted. If this story touched your heart, remember there's always someone out there who might need your help today, even in the smallest way. Acts of kindness can echo for years, returning to us when we least expect them. Don't wait for the right time to do good, because the right time is always now.